When the McLaren F1 team counts on speed, they count on Dropbox Dash. Dash finds what you need fast across all your work apps so you can focus on what matters. Learn more at dropbox.com/McLaren F1.
Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. Brother, we are back after a little layoff. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler. Yeah, buddy, it's been a little bit of time here, but we're back at it here on a Wednesday night doing what we do. We got a lot of topics tonight. A lot of stuff to cover.
We spoke last week on Monday, and we basically said, we don't have enough to go this week, maybe 30 minutes. Let's skip. And it's like the college football god said, oh, really, guys? Here's a bunch of crap.
Y'all want some content? We got some content for you. We got some Hokie stuff. We got some Hokie adjacent stuff. We got some national stuff. Here you go.
It's everything, and it's everywhere. And, you know, we haven't been here in a few weeks, but for the next 3 weeks, you're going to see us back to back to back weeks. Then we're going to take a little break before the season and before the camp starts. But, you know, your boys, we got to have a little vacation time. Brian had a wedding to go to. We've been doing the normal fun summertime stuff here. You know, it kind of is what it is. Everything between the pool and cocktails and cookouts.
Fireworks. Yeah, trip to New York for a wedding. Had another wedding thrown in there. Been down to the beach a couple times. Not anywhere far away, just Virginia Beach with the in-laws. So, but it's been a good time. It's been a fun summer so far. We got through the 4th, had a good time. Saw a little fireworks. Didn't blow a finger off or anything. So I think we're doing all right.
He should just say he didn't JPP it.
I did not JPP it. I'm not going to roll in here missing digits. I think I'm good.
But let's get to it, Brian. We have so much to cover. Let's hit a couple quick headlines before we hit into the deep topics of the night. Let's start with this. Announced just a few weeks ago, Pete Morris is essentially no longer the assistant AD. He has moved to Northern Iowa and is now the director of university relations. I have not seen any announcement as of this time who his replacement is. If somebody has, let us know.
I heard it was an upturned mop with a bucket for a head, and he's doing a great job so far.
Well, let's just say this. We clearly know that over the last about 7 months, Pete was not in charge of the Hokie football Twitter account.
Yeah, they took away his passwords. He was no longer sending the tweets, and you could tell it. It was obvious.
Yes, we had
because dude tweeted the same from the Hokie account like he did from his personal account. Man, only thing missing is he didn't tweet some like weird ass steak that he was eating that night.
He was eating in. But the bigger piece is finally we noticed after that time, it looks like they had given it to someone, potentially a student. You can tell by the way it's tweeted. It's not you have some set time stuff, but it's not everything set timed. It's some random stuff out there, some fun stuff. Graphics department always doing an awesome job. So Pete's going. I'm going to be interested to see because I feel like this is going to be one of those Brent Pry hires you kind of know about. Because this is essentially going to be his media guy. So interesting. I'm assuming he's going to come from Penn State at some time.
Penn State or some other stop that he's had along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let's hit this real quick, a little national news. It's not official yet, but it looks like there's been recommendations for transfer portal windows. It used to basically just be a free-for-all for 9 months from basically August 1 to May 1, and that's just dumb. You have kids getting in the portal in season, but now they're looking at potentially 2 windows. Essentially, the way it's shaping up, one after second National Signing Day and then one after spring ball for a couple weeks. I will say I like this because to me, it helps these students out because they need to commit to where they're going to be at for the semester. Because how many kids are out there right now without a place to go? It's
Yeah.
it's sad because there are so many kids that do not have a home, and
some kids, I think it's going to help having them. If it's one of those in-season situations, if the situation isn't favorable, hey, you stick it out for the rest of the season. You might get some extra tape that's going to benefit
exactly
where your next stop is. So,
but then also with the whole idea of the spring ball thing is if you go through spring practice to where you are, right?
Yep.
Go to spring practice where you are. Again, more additional tape. There's tape going on every day inside these programs. And if you you're not the fit, again, there's more info to get out to your potential next school. I also like having it after National Signing Day, the second one, which should be the only one, but that's neither here nor there. Because at least at that point in time, for the coaching staffs, now we go away from the student athlete, they know where they sit at, right? They know exactly where they sit at. And as kids start going, they can start preparing for the next recruiting cycle versus the way it is now. You could be sitting there and it's like, okay, boom, dropping the hammer in the middle of the season. It's like, okay, we didn't account for this. So I think the windows are a good idea. Of course, they're punting on it because what else does the NCAA do? They can't make decisions to save their life. So,
the NCAA having a good idea put on their plate and then talking about it and then punting. I've never heard that story before in my life. Oh, wait, that's every situation that we've been dealing with the past 15, 20 years.
And it's probably why the situation we're going to talk about a little later here has happened. And eventually, as I think, I want to say maybe Josh Pate put it out there. For those who hate the NCAA, what happened kind of could be the beginning of the end. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's talk about the windows a little bit more real quick before we move on. You talked about the window after the second signing day. I'm a bigger fan of maybe having it after the first signing day.
Okay.
Only because if you're looking to get enrolled at a new school, get in the winter workouts with that new school, the timing works better like mid-December through early January versus a little bit later in January and in February.
And that makes sense too. Either way, you've got to have a time limit on it. You can't just have a free-for-all like it's been. But again, it's something the NCAA didn't want to govern, as usual. Still not governing at the moment. So hopefully it gets worked out one way or the other by someone or the other. Real quick, kick to basketball. Ive Aluma did not get drafted, but he has, signed on with the Grizz. I think me and you were to the point he made the right decision. Obviously now he's got a free agent contract, and regardless what works out in the NBA, the hope is he can make a roster and stay in the league 10 years.
Yeah.
But I think now, because he's getting that pub at the NBA level, I think if he cannot get on with anyone in the league, he's going to have a 10 or 12-year career somewhere overseas, whether it's Germany, Italy, Spain, France, some of those, good second-tier leagues.
Yep.
And have a very healthy living like several Hokies have over the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be a guy that can tear up one of the European leagues. Whether he can catch on and find a bench role or a role player role with an NBA team is to be seen. But I definitely think he's got professional career ahead of him for the next 5 to 10 years. Regardless of whether that's here or somewhere overseas.
Yep. So best of luck to Aluma in the future. And Brian, we've hit it. We're about to hit one of our 3 big topics tonight. We're going to look at recruiting because boy, oh boy, has the last week been pretty crazy for the Hokies, as the Hokies landed 6 commits, since roughly the end of last week.
Yep.
Currently, per 247, ranked 35th with with 15 total commits. Remember, this is no limit this year, so I think we're halfway there. I think we'll see. I think at least 10 more, probably 15 more.
Or Bon Jovi in this shit.
What?
We're living on a prayer. We're halfway there.
We're halfway there. We're living on a prayer. Yes, exactly. Ranked 35th in the overall and the composite. Kind of where we said we should be. We won't top 30. I think we can live with 35. But let's talk about these kids, Brian. Take a look at them each. Let's start with the first commit here. We talked about you got to look at the small schools. You cannot, overlook like places where we grew up, and they didn't overlook. And it's Tavorian Copeland out of Appomattox County, not too far from where we grew up. He's a linebacker prospect per 247, 6'4", 193 pounds. He is the 19th ranked player in the state of Virginia. He is a 3-star 87 per 247. And, his offer list, he's definitely a smart kid with offers from Penn, Princeton, and Dartmouth. But essentially it came down really to UVA and Tech. He chose Tech. So just kind of taking a look at him, Brian, what are you projecting for Copeland?
He's kind of that guy I could see probably going to start in that Sam role, but could potentially move over to Will, depending on how much he's able to put on weight-wise and play against the run. But I like his build out the gate. That 6'4" frame can definitely take a little bit more size, so get him in the weight room, get a little bit more weight on him and see what he can do. But runs pretty well. I like his athleticism. We'll see if he can hold up at Sam, but if he's not at Sam, I could see him sliding over to Will at some point.
I think he's one of those guys that's probably, when he steps on campus, is a 3-year project. Appomattox is a very small, I can't remember if they're 2A or 1A. 2A?
I think 2A.
2A?
Yeah.
So he's coming from a smaller school where he probably is the best athlete on the field every time he plays.
Yeah.
In which sometimes that hurts, but sometimes that helps. It's one of those coin flips. Some guys get it and they can't deal with it. Some guys get it and they strive to be what they were before. So you're projecting him at a linebacker position. His primary recruiters, Joe Rudolph and Chris Marr. I think, we saw Rudolph. We know he went through Glass. He was down on South Side. So clearly he's kind of found his neck of the woods there. And
For sure.
So awesome. Good land there. Now, the next one, that we went out of state on, but it's still within the footprint by maybe 10 minutes. And obviously a connection to Brent Pry at Penn State, and Pry's listed as his primary recruiter with Marr being a secondary, and that's Asen Stevens out of Decatur Central in Indianapolis. 6'4", 210-pound linebacker, a top 10 player in the state of Indiana, 3-star 87, and, offers from Iowa State, Purdue, and, it looks like Cincinnati had some interest from some other Big Ten schools like Nebraska and Minnesota. So definitely real deal prospect, obviously, with Tommy Stevens, his brother, being, also a Division I player. Football's in his blood. Brian, where are you projecting Stevens, and, how far do you think he has to come?
He doesn't have to come as far as Copeland. I'm projecting him at Mike. I think just based on his speed, he doesn't have enough quickness to be outside, whether at Will or at Sam. I think he's definitely going to end up at Mike. But I like his instincts. I like his technique. He's somebody that, depending on what happens, with after this season, I can see him having an impact probably in his second year on campus. So, he could be the real deal. Not necessarily an elite player at the position, but somebody solid that can hold that down as we kind of transition from, one regime to the next.
Me, it was super interesting to see that Pry was his primary. And that might have been maybe he was the primary when he was at Penn State. And it's just one of those things that can carry over because very rarely do you see a head coach be a primary on a guy. Yeah. So you kind of wonder, is this his linebacker, his prototypical Mike linebacker with just enough speed to go ahead?
Just enough speed to go, sideline to sideline and get there. He's not somebody that's going to, cover a slot receiver one-on-one. You don't want that matchup a lot of the game, but he's a guy that can hang in there and get the job done. And as you said, I think, Pry was probably his primary at Penn State. They already had a relationship established. He kept that going, brought Marv in since Marv was going to be his position coach and his coordinator, and kind of let the rest take care of itself. But I think, of the linebacking pickups that we had, this is probably my favorite because I think it's a really good fit for Pry's system, especially if he's able to stick at the Mike position.
Yeah. Now he does play also quarterback, and I know there was the joke from his brother about possibly getting some time in the room with Tyler Bowen. I don't foresee that, but it's always it's always good to know having a linebacker who played that position because there is a lot of the mental parts to understand if you're playing. How many times do we always hear it, Brian? Go back to your favorite team with Peyton Manning when they played the Ravens. How many matchups was it between Manning and Lewis making the calls, making the adjustments, making the second one? So definitely like having that background with him.
Yeah, it's definitely a chess match there. So if you can get somebody that can handle that part of it and kind of see things as they're happening and pick it up, make the adjustments, get everybody where they need to be, get the alignment right, that's what you need.
Absolutely. All right. But we weren't done yet.
That's an understatement.
Oh, my gosh. We're just getting halfway there now. And the next was Caleb Woodson at a Battlefield up in Haymarket. Rated as a safety, 6'3", 200 pounds. Number 31 player in the state of Virginia. 3-starred in 86. Held some offers and some interest from Florida State, Wake, and Virginia. Brian, you immediately told me the second we talked about him, he's not going to play safety in this system.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to end up at Sam. I think he could play safety. There's potential there. But I think speed is probably his biggest weakness, top-end speed. I think we can get him at Sam, and because he does tackle well, he does have really good instincts. I think Sam is going to be where he ends up long-term, and I think he can really thrive in that position.
Also good to see here, Battlefield Haymarket, that's up in Northern Virginia, right? Right.
Yeah.
Am I losing my mind? So that's kind of that's kind of one of your first Northern Virginia wins there. Again, it's anything we see in Virginia now. Do we want 4 stars? Do we want 5 stars from Virginia? Yes. But it's something we've said since day one. It's you have to lay the foundation. You have to make the relationships, and taking players who, are, ranked in the top 1,000 and ranked in the top 30 in the state. That's what you do. You find the players that fit your system, and what you hope is it's the benefits later, right? Yep. It's treating Caleb Woodson and his family and the coaching staff at Battlefield right. If they have a 4-star stud in 2 or 3 years, he knows the relationship. He knows how the staff treats people.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing. We're laying the foundation again. We're getting back into those big schools that produce consistent Division I talent within the state, and we're getting those relationships back. We had gotten away from that. We had gotten to a point where if it wasn't, a relationship that was already there, they were finding it hard to get some headway of some of these key recruits in the state. This is laying the foundation, and the guy we're going to talk about next is another big part of laying that foundation at primary schools.
Absolutely. But before we jump to him, we got a couple of folks that are already hitting us up in the chat tonight, Brian. Let's throw those up here. Obviously, Dwight, always we appreciate you listening, brother. Talking about Battlefield's a great program, and he can play, and he is a tech guy. Love to hear that from Dwight. And again, it's making the inroads in Battlefield. And there's one more in there, Brian, talking about Asen Stevens, our coach Robbie Compton, our buddy, talking about Mike in this system is as close as a QB can be on the D. So we hear that about Stevens. Again, it's good feelings. But Brian, the next one that happened, I think it hit. Watching the video gave chills. Seeing that one picture with his dad's name, the reflection, the picture of dad in the background, when Braylon Johnson out of Highland Springs, 3-star, when he committed, it felt like one of your own was coming home. And it was one of those, I don't think I ever had a time since he started his recruiting that he wasn't going to come. I think he knows the importance of it. I think he knows how big a player his dad was in the building of the foundation back in the 90s. I think he understands how important a player he is right now and his high school is to the rebuilding of the Tech program.
Yeah, this is a big pickup on several fronts. Number one, he's a good player. That's first and foremost. But number two, what it means to get a legacy player from a program like Highland Springs, son of a great coach, and that's not hyperbole in the slightest, a great coach and great former Hokie. So, I mean, this is what it's all about. And watching the commit video, obviously both of us, in the 804 area, I mean, it was special, watching Hokie highlights, watching cut ups from his area of the city. I mean, it was special across the board.
Yes, it was super special. Now let's talk about the football player now, because he's Lauren Johnson's kid. Everybody knows that. But when you look at the tape, he's 6'1", 170 pounds. They project him at safety. Is he staying at safety? Is he a corner? Where do you think they're going to try to fit him in?
I think he probably stays at safety. I think he could be free safety in this system. He might end up sliding over to corner. A lot of times, though, guys start at corner and get moved to safety. So I don't know if that's the path. If he's going to come in and go through a spring or a fall with Cheetah and then slide over with Pearson after that, we'll see. But I think ultimately he's going to end up playing safety for us.
I like to hear that. Just one of those things that make you feel good. One of the guys who was the original DBU's son, hopefully bring it back to prominence again. And I think, again, in the state, the Highland Springs Inroad were made at the end of the Fuente era, really driven hard home by JC. I really do believe that. I really do believe JC and Daryl and a couple of other guys really drove it home. And I think this program, or this current program, really knows the focus of it. They know the focus of it. And it's awesome to see. So, I'm just glad he's committed. Again, if you have not watched the video, go watch it, especially if you're from here in Richmond. It should make you feel some chills. All right, Brian, let's talk about some speed next. Let's talk about, out of the eastern part of North Carolina, Southern Nash's own Traylon Mitchell, 6'2", 185, classified as an athlete. I think we are on his only division or his only P5 offer. East Carolina, App State, some other folks that had a look at him here. 26th player in the state of North Carolina, but, we hear speed, and then you hear 10.300 meters. That's fast.
Yeah, he's a burner. He's a burner. And
fast.
Yeah, he's fast. And I'll tell you what, he's fast, but I see 6'2", I see 185.
Mm-hmm.
So he's fast, but he's not like small fast. He's got a little bit of size to him. And I think that's going to end up having him somewhere on that wide receiver position. And I like that for him. I think initially at the gate, he's probably going to be a special teams contributor, but I think long-term you can see him, making some noise, even as just a primary, one-dimensional threat as a wide receiver. You could see him making some plays that way.
Where's the tape at on him? What's it showing him doing, down at Southern Nash that you've seen?
He does a little bit of everything for them, but They had him lined up a lot of different places on the field,
Okay.
on both sides of the ball. But like I said, I think primarily he's going to be a wideout for us, just based on his frame, his speed, and what he can do with the football.
Yeah. Primary recruiter was Stu Holt. Secondary was Tyler Bowen. Me and you talked about this with our buddy Robbie and some other folks as well. Stu Holt was brought in. Him and Derek Jones were brought in to sort of handle North Carolina. Stu's dad was a coach down there, won a lot of connections. And, when you hear athlete and then I hear what you talk about, like he's everywhere, backfield, all over the line, playing defense. Again, I don't feel like we were doing that as much in the last era. Sometimes it's just go find the best athlete on the field. You bring him in, you figure out where he plays the best at collegiate football, and then you let him do it. We saw that how many times in the Beamer era, and it worked out a lot.
Yep.
So, sometimes we can don't try to be, he is a running back. Like, no, he is a football player. Figure out if running back's his best position.
Yeah, and Price talked about it in several of his press conferences. All right, we'll get you on campus. We know you're a player. We like how you go about your business. We'll figure out where we can best maximize your abilities for your success and for our success. And I think that's one of the type of players that we're trying to get on campus. And another one is the next guy we're going to talk about here in just a couple minutes.
Absolutely. Another athlete out of the state of South Carolina, a top 10 player in the state of South Carolina, 3-star. Had some interest from West Virginia and Penn State. And Thomas Williams, 5'10", 180 pounds, out of Powdersville. Tell me, just out of Greenville area, what's the tape saying on him? I mean, corner, running back, is he another defensive back? The Cheetah was his primary receiver.
Yeah, I could see him being a corner. I could see him lining up at running back. He's got, I'm not going to compare him to Macho Harris, but he's got some of the same type of build and same type of qualities, not quite as elite level as Macho, obviously, but he's got some of those same type of traits. And I think I could see him at running back. I could see him out there at corner. But we'll see if he can develop into a starter at those positions. But he's got talent. He's got some good wiggle at the running back position. He's able to break away when he gets in the open field. They used him a lot on some screens and things out of the backfield, things outside of the box. So he's able to do those things as well. So it might be, if he ends up running back, maybe more of a Chance Black, Raheem Blackshear type model. I think probably less of a receiver than those two, but still very capable.
Awesome. Anytime you hear a name Macho Harris, it's tough to live up to that, but it's awesome to hear the qualities. Again, he's an athlete. I just said it. Get the athletes in the door, figure out their best place to play. I also like going down to South Carolina, getting a top 10 player. There's just certain states, if you can get a top 10 player in, you feel good about it. And, but let's just talk overall about the last week. Really, it was 6 for 7 of the people we knew were announcing. And the 7th, it had been the ups and downs, was, behind the scenes, they didn't know what he was going to do. He eventually chose elsewhere. But, there's no big, crown jewel in this, with the exception of Braylon, because of who he is. But there's no top 100 player or anything. But what does it go when you go on a streak like that, when you get 6 good players? They aren't scraping they're all about 86, 87. Probably a few of them could get bumped higher this year. But what does that mean to you in your head when you hear this was a run, good players, different areas of the country, athletic, and overall just good football players?
Yeah, I mean, Mitchell aside, these are all like mid to high 3-star players. These are your typical, year 2, year 3 contributors coming in. So I'm hoping to see maybe even a little bit higher than that for a couple of these guys, depending on, some of these areas where we have depth concerns. But I think it's a good solid run. It gives you momentum on the trail. It gives you something to talk to other recruits about. And I think that's big. When you got guys in the boat, it's a little bit easier sell than when you're trying to sell something that, other people haven't bought into yet. And we know that the guys on that roster have bought in, but we still have to get that buy-in from the guys that are coming here for their future. And that's still to be determined. And it's nice when you get a run like this, especially from a couple key areas in your state, along with, some good grabs in the outer reaches of your footprint. It gives you momentum on the trail, and it gives you something else to sell.
Gives you something else to sell. Get your name on lips, especially in the state of North Carolina and South Carolina. That when it's discussed that this player here went to Virginia Tech from this state.
Yeah.
I really look at Thomas Williams with that. Top 10 player in South Carolina, leaving South Carolina. I mean, it looks like he was not recruited by those down there, but 247 puts him as a top 10. Like we've always said, trust 247. He's lowered really by the composite rankings elsewhere because if everybody had him there, he'd be significantly higher in the composite. But it's getting those good vibes, and as those kids, as we talked about, and Dwight mentioned about Battlefield, getting the good relationship building when you have that stud, and the coaches at your school and the families inside your school and the teachers can speak to who these people are and where you're going. It's so key because you see it all the time, and we've seen them with the social media blitzes, and you just hear stories from the camps. Real deal coaching staff here that this isn't a 9-to-5 for them, that I think these guys eat and breathe, sleep it all the time.
Yep. And you can tell the seriousness that they go about their business.
Yes.
We'll see if that turns into the recruiting wins that we need and the wins on the field that we need. But we're definitely going about our business a lot better than we've seen in the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 9 years.
Ooh,
definitely throughout the majority of the Fuente era. So we can definitely attest to that. We can tell that we're putting the effort in, and we're starting to see some results. We're starting to see that pay off some. I'm hoping that we get some more bigger wins as we kind of close out, the back half of this cycle. That's going to be important. Yeah, we got a lot more left. We got a lot more left. We got about, we're a little over halfway through right now. But we need to keep pressing forward and keep looking for areas where we can gain some ground. But I feel like we're building the right foundation. I just want to see maybe 1 or 2 home runs as we're hitting these singles and doubles on the trail.
All right here. Well, Brian, so we went to bed a week ago, and, college football seemed normal, right?
Yeah.
All conferences intact, we're looking at a big recruiting week, camps are, the dead period's coming on. Obviously, the coaches are probably wrapping evaluations, probably about to take their 2-week vacation before they get ramped up for camp. And all of a sudden, on the 30th, it dropped that USC and UCLA would be moving to the Big Ten.
Yep.
Let me go ahead, but before I give mine, give me your initial reaction, because I'm sure your phone blew up. I'm sure your Twitter notifications and other notifications went zzz, like, what the hell? It's July 30th.
Yeah, it was blowing up. It was blowing up. My initial reaction were, is this the domino? Because I think we've been kind of flirting with that. What's the domino that's going to really throw complete and utter turmoil into what we know of as college football, right? We thought it might be something that when Texas and Oklahoma made the SEC move, was it going to be an immediate domino effect there? And as soon as I saw this news, I was like, is this the one where they're all going to topple, or is this more of a just the Big Ten is getting into, one of the three best media markets in the country, and these two schools are trying to reap the benefit of Big Ten media money?
Yeah. Well, my initial reaction was
and it's
first
still
shock
too early. It's still too early to
because-
tell at this point. But I mean, I think that's where I was out the gate. Is this the domino that's going to lead to a brand new era of college football?
The new order of college football, and it's looking like very well it could be, because I think now we're at the dawn of the super conferences. And my first thing was, it was a little bit of shock to say, that is a long travel. That is two teams who are used to nice weather football going to places basically after mid-October. There is no nice weather football
No,
anywhere in the
No.
Big Ten, anywhere. So that sort of, little shock. But it's like now you look at the SEC and you look at the Big Ten, they're at 16. They're at 16. The SEC roughly stretches from the coast of South Carolina into the plains of Oklahoma. And now the Big Ten is stretching literally from New York to LA. And, we sit here, and the question is, how much more movement's coming? How much more movement is coming quick? Because I think the one reason this move was made was because the Pac-10 or Pac-12's media rights are up in basically 2023. And obviously it was announced this week they're going to the table and are trying to negotiate a deal. But how much more movement could we see? There are reports that the Big Ten doesn't want UW or Oregon, and the Big 12's trying to convince Pac-12 teams to come. The ACC is not saying a damn word, which scares the shit out of me. You have Tech fans left and right screaming, we need to bleep and get on it, make phone calls. Don't fuck us.
Yeah. And all of that is right? Like right now, no one knows where we're heading. And if I'm Whit Babcock, I'm game theorying the shit out of this thing.
Yes.
I'm calling the Big Ten. I'm calling the SEC, but I'm also calling the ACC office and get on the horn with Phillips. And I'm saying, you need to add some teams and get us some better media rights on this deal, so we have a little bit more firewall if this is going to carry forward. But I'm definitely hedging. I'm definitely seeing if the ACC ends up getting blown up, if we start getting poached, 2-3 big teams on the front end. I mean, I'm looking to get out at that point.
Yeah.
If you're losing Miami, you're losing FSU, you're losing Clemson, you're losing the UNC. You need to go ahead and have a plan in place, because you don't want to be the guy holding the bag at the end.
No, you don't. Now, luckily for Tech in this sense is, we do have a big footprint in some major media markets. I don't give a shit what the media says. Well, Maryland's no. Northern Virginia, D.C., and the southern part of Maryland is not Maryland country. The TV sets, you can turn it on and see Maryland. Ain't no motherfucking body watching Maryland football up there. So for me,
that's Navy State.
For me, though, if you're the SEC and you want to get into a top 10 market, we're your best bet there. If you take a look at the long-term history of the football program, you feel it's going to be competitive. We show up for games. You're not showing us on ESPN on a Saturday night and it's, a half full stadium. That's not going to happen. So we have some things going for us. It's also that value, which our buddy Dr. Jeremy Counts put up today, which I think shocked me and you, talking about this is a few years older, but Tech, essentially athletic department, being valued at $280 million, which I think, as being you look, kind of shocked that we're ahead of some people we did not expect to be ahead of.
Yeah, and I think that's, our brand has taken a little bit of a hit since those numbers came out, so it's probably not 100% indicative, but it's also not fall off the map either.
No.
That had us number 3 in the conference in terms of valuation. I wouldn't put us any lower than probably 5 since then.
Yeah.
Maybe a UNC jumps us. Maybe who was
UNC
the other
would
one that
have
was
to
right?
be-
Who was the one that was right below us? Was it Louisville?
Hold on, let me get that.
I'm trying to remember
tweet
who
up.
it was.
Well, UNC would have had to make up $120 million.
Yeah, I knew they were pretty. And let's be
Miami
honest.
was,
I mean, in terms of revenue, Jordan Brand in basketball is where their valuation is. They don't really have a brand in football.
No,
So if we're talking football, I mean, UNC is UNC. They've got the Jordan brand. They've got basketball. They've got their AAU status. That's going to help them in a Big Ten type negotiation. But I don't think they really carry enough weight in terms of a negotiation with the SEC, especially since when you get a Virginia Tech, because of where the alumni are, you're getting that Nova, you're getting 804 and 757, but you're also getting a lot in the RDU area. You're getting a lot in the Charlotte area. We talked about it earlier. You're getting a lot in the Atlanta area. So we've got a presence pretty much up down. We talked about it earlier with Robbie, throughout the 40 corridor, throughout the 85 corridor,
absolutely.
Up 95 towards the DC area. It's really we've got that type of presence and we got that type of brand and travel that I think is going to help us long term, especially if we're talking SEC versus Big Ten.
The third place team back in when that thing was coming out, it was Georgia Tech at $215 million.
Okay, and they probably suffered some hits since then as well.
They've definitely suffered some hits since then. A couple of the ones we were like ahead of that kind of shocked me a little, like Kentucky being in the SEC, having a superior, an elite basketball program, being above them, especially since Stoops has been there, really elevating their football program. That kind of shocked me a little bit. But let's flip it a little bit here, Brian. Can we say who's really driving this? Who's really driving why these moves are being made? Because I really don't think Greg Sankey or Kevin up at the Big Ten are the guys driving this. It's ESPN and Disney, and it's Fox TV executives.
Yep.
They are driving this because
they're presenting. Here's what could happen if you scoop up these two markets. Here's what can happen for you, and then that's presented, and then that's driving everything else.
Well, but what did I say to you earlier, Brian? If you take USC out of the Pac-12, their negotiations on their next TV deal are going to be significantly lower.
Yep.
They're going to be higher than what they were 11 years ago, but they're not going to be astronomically higher because you took the biggest brand. Fox and ESPN benefit off that. And Fox and ESPN and also benefit off of, you're adding USC, but we're already giving you guys close to $50 million a team. It might be worth, an extra $3 or $4 million. It's not worth an extra X amount of dollars it would be out if the Pac-12 had them.
Yeah. They're coming out better on their end in terms of net between the two TV deals.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you get a conference that gets into another market. It just happens to be one of the largest markets in the country.
Mm-hmm. Which they're already in. You just get to absorb it into your biggest contract instead of having to pay another substantial contract. That's where my mind is. Even the Texas and Oklahoma thing was ESPN's absorbing this into their biggest contract.
Yeah.
And people can say, well, Texas and Oklahoma moved the needle. No, they moved the needle for the Big 12.
It's not gonna bump it's not gonna get the same type of bump in the SEC. It's not gonna get the same type of bump in the Big Ten.
No.
So whatever they're bumping up on the SEC and Big Ten deals, it's getting dropped off on the other side. So
exactly,
it's chestnut.
They're
checkers.
making more money off of it, and that's where you can really see it driving now. Because the question is, if the Pac-10 or the Pac-12, there you go, ESPN's consolidating debt. Yep, that's exactly what they're doing. But if they keep these two conferences alive, which now that's going to be a thing for ESPN to play because content is what drives them, right? If they screw up and kill a conference, they're sort of killing themselves. And people say, well, they have the big ones, but you're still killing revenue in some way. Because now
at this point, were they saying we built such a monster where we can't show all the games we want to show, but now they are potentially diluting what product is left because they might kill a conference and then those games matter less. So, it's definitely a risky move, but I think long term it's going to probably be fine for them because I think there's another end game that the conferences are playing with this that we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, big end games. Now, it came out today, the loose agreement between, and Brian titling this episode Loose Agreement, the loose agreement between discussions between the Pac-12 and the ACC. If you're the Pac-12 and if you're the ACC, do you almost just say F it? Let's your brands would be as follows. This would be your top 10 brands. And this isn't, to me, this is not a bad look. Virginia Tech, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Oregon, UW, Stanford, Arizona State, and I'm going to give Utah because Utah is what they've done the last 5 years, going to a Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I mean they've had waves before too, so that they're not exactly a brand that nobody knows about.
But could those 10 teams carry a 2014 conference? Jesus Christ. Could that carry? Could you just say we're merging? We're going to have an East and West. We're going to have a championship game. We're going to have some cross country rivalries. Could it work?
I'll say this: the bold stroke of fully combining is no dumber than this loose partnership idea of playing a championship game. So, I mean, if you're going to go all in, go the fuck all in and make it so, it's harder for these teams individually to back out for greener pastures, and number two, get your media deal in place where you have that juggernaut in place, right? Because right now, what the SEC and what the Big Ten have that no other conference has is clout and firewalls.
Yeah.
They're not going to get poached because of their clout and because of the firewalls that they have in place. And that's why when we talked last year about the Big Ten and the ACC and the Pac-12, look them in the eye deal, whatever the hell that shit was. I was
Gentleman
like,
handshake.
You gotta know that the Big Ten has the leverage in all of this shit. Like
they're making the most money.
If you're not putting something in writing, ACC and Pac-12, you about to get fucked. And what happened? They got fucked. They've been put on alert, and now somebody's got to do something. So either you're going to slowly watch your conference crumble.
True.
Or
the lawyers eventually are going to get around
there's going to be a loophole in the grant of rights. At some point, the grant of rights firewall is going to get busted.
Or the SEC or the Big Ten are just going to say, screw it. Well, for the next 5 years, we'll just eat the $70 million, and we'll pay you
and schools that already have the money to do some of this stuff, they know long term they're going to come out better, so they might weather 2 or 3 years of short term pain. Well, I'm looking at FSU in particular.
Well,
because FSU can probably handle it.
FSU. Well, I'm gonna say this. If you want me to be straight up with you, I mean, this is also a move, especially if Virginia Tech were to go to the Big Ten. This would be a move for not only athletics but academics. So the question is, would someone like Tim Sands be willing to go out there and say, we're going to do this move with, and what we're going to do is we have an endowment, right? How much you think the Virginia Tech endowment is?
I do not know.
You might know. $2 billion. It's almost $2 billion. He might just say, we're just screw the grants of rights. We're gonna take care of ourselves because we're looking at this as not only a athletic move, but this is a massive move for our research university to be partnered with the Big Ten schools, right?
Yeah, and the question is, how close are we to that AAU membership threshold? It's mostly based on the research side of things. It's hard to get that threshold without a fully fledged medical school. It's hard to get there just because of how much research is done on that side of the aisle. But it's definitely possible. There are several schools, Georgia Tech for one, that don't have a medical school that are AAU schools. But again, that threshold is much harder to meet without that element. How close we are, I couldn't say. I know that was a goal of Sands when he took over, was to get Virginia Tech to AAU status, but we're not there. And I don't know how close we are, and I don't know if we've got enough time to get there before more of these dominoes start to fall.
All right, so that will be, some of the more interesting things. We've already mentioned the firewall. The ACC does have the best, but I think eventually people will get around it, and/or universities will just say we're going to eat it because long term it's going to work for us.
Yeah, of the three conferences that are potentially getting poached, ACC has the best firewall, but they also have the one that probably
short term somebody's got to bite the bullet.
University. Exactly. And Pac-12 probably the most poachable because right now they've got a expiring media rights deal. So somewhere in the middle there is the Big 12.
Yeah, well, the Big 12 had their Big 2 poached. I don't think anybody's poaching anybody out of the Big 12 yet. Not unless they're going to 24. All right, let's end it with this, because we've already talked about what could happen to the ACC. Do you think the Hokies are safe one way or the other?
I don't feel 100% safe, just because I'm not sure if we're in a position where we're going to dictate the terms and be as proactive as we need to be to get this done. That's my concern. I'm not saying that Witt isn't capable. I'm saying I don't know if. I think Witt knows what needs to happen. I don't know if he can get us there. We'll see. Because there's a lot of moving parts here, and I think he understands that, but I don't know if it comes down to the ACC isn't taking the steps we need to, if he's going to push hard enough for that SEC offer.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sands is going to come off the money to take that if grant of rights is still in place. So there's still those pieces in place that, potentially could hamstring a move to the SEC. And, the fear is, and I think long-term, what's going to devalue Virginia Tech's brand more is not going to the SEC and having, a few years where we're only winning 4 or 5 games. What's going to devalue Virginia Tech's brand is playing football that doesn't fucking matter. So we better not be in a situation where we get left behind.
That's the big piece. It's the getting left behind. And that's where, in this situation, again, if the ACC is not trying to push buttons, trying to push hard to get essentially making itself not untouchable, but one of those conferences where you can't look away. That's your issue, right?
Yep.
You don't want to be a conference that you can look away at. And right now, like the Big 12, think about it, you can look away. I don't think the Pac-12 is there yet, because I think Oregon and UW and a couple of those schools can still hold your eye. Also, luckily, USC and UCLA have been just shit programs the last 5 years. They haven't been that good. So
I don't want to be in a situation where our biggest matchups of the year are Wake Forest and Boston College and maybe Pitt.
Oh no.
That I don't want to be in that situation. That's not what that's not worth the price of admission. If we're not playing at number one games that matter against regional opponents consistently, I don't want it. if we're not playing for a conference championship that gives us the opportunity to make the college football playoff, I don't want it. I don't want conference games against ODU and Liberty and potentially down the road JMU. I don't want that. Virginia Tech needs to play major college football.
Virginia Tech needs to play basically what we've dealt our whole entire fandom starting in the early 1990s. Big time games all year long. And they have to make that decision right now between Whit Babcock, Sands, and even Jim Phillips of how are you going to keep this thing going? And if you're Virginia Tech and the ACC is not moving or they're moving at a slow pace, you just say screw it. All right. Well, before we get into looking at the future ACC schedule, which might not be the future ACC schedule, we are going to take a quick pause from our digital partners.
As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode.
All right. So before we actually hit the schedule that was released, which we've got our own feelings about. There was an announcement. ACC headquarters is moving from Greensboro to Charlotte. They've committed $15 million. Let's just keep it in Greensboro and commit the $15 million to actually growing a conference and making sure you're alive in 5 years.
Yeah, the hindsight of that move definitely is bad optics for sure.
Well, the only upside is now you at least have a major hub you can fly in and out of as you're trying to get these deals done. There's your upside right there. All right, so Brian, the big change that had been discussed and finally goes through. The ACC goes starting in 2023, so a really quick turnaround to a divisionless ACC. There is no more Atlantic. There is no more Coastal. Praise the Lord.
We got rid of Coastal. Rest in peace, Coastal Chaos.
No, that's after January or after December.
True, yeah. Sorry, so, we're having an early we're having a send off party for the Coastal Chaos.
We are currently in the wake of Coastal Chaos. Let's hope it's not Coastal Chaos this year. But divisions are gone, which is great, and essentially the top two teams are going to play for the title, which you've got to love because if you can remember, everybody put your hats on. If you can remember back in the early part of the ACC when Virginia Tech came on, there were several years Virginia Tech was legitimately the second best team in the conference, but we didn't win the Coastal, so we didn't get to go play in the championship game. Yep. In the same way, there were a couple years where like Miami was the second best, but we beat them and we got to go. So I like that just in general because you're likely going to get, either an unbeaten, a one-loss, and at worst a two-loss team in the championship game, which is a pleasurable, hopefully the Hokies are there a lot, pleasurable thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I like this better. You get the two best. I think that's important. As you said, we've had several years, especially, early in the first, 7 to 10 years that the Hokies were in the conference where, we were the second best team in the conference and sometimes didn't play for the championship. A lot of times it takes that imbalance of the divisions out of play. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it. The matchups, there were some wins and some losses with those matchups though.
Well, let's talk about the big win. The big win is literally every 4 years you're going to play every team home and away.
Yep.
Every 4 years. So that means basically every other year we're either getting Florida State, Clemson, or Miami at home. Or Louisville at home, obviously UVA every other year. That's the big benefit because we had not played Clemson we hadn't been to Death Valley since 06 or 07. Was it 07? The year just we scored like 9 different ways, and they're still trying to figure out what happened. They're still running down the hill the wrong way.
Yeah.
But we only played them at home, once? Twice in the last.
I think twice.
11 and 17 or 16.
That sounds right.
Now you're talking about it every other year. Florida State, similar. And what does that do? Well, for the ACC, that gives you your prime brands playing each other all the time. Every year you get to circle matchups. For Virginia Tech fans, it's every year there is going to be a massive, massive game on campus, which that in itself is a big deal because it's usually going to be a sellout, which, for years it was, but you're going to have more eyes on Virginia Tech than a normal week because let's be honest, playing Georgia Tech the first weekend in October at home versus playing Florida State is a hell of a lot of difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm looking forward to some of these, especially getting to see teams every other year. That's big. That's big because that hammers home, the market play that we're talking about. When you have divisions, a lot of times, you when you try to recruit within that footprint, yeah, okay, they're on our schedule, but they're on our schedule maybe sometimes once in a recruit's entire time on campus. Like, yeah, that makes some of that a little bit difficult, especially for those cross division opponents. Whether it be Clemson, I know Louisville, we had a big span where we didn't play them.
Have they still haven't come to Blacksburg? Have they?
I don't think
so. We went up there back on COVID year, but they had not come to Blacksburg. And Syracuse first time coming to Blacksburg was back in 21.
Yeah,
that's asinine. That's asinine, and that goes away, thank God. But let's go to the one everybody wants to talk about. The locked three.
The locked three.
The locked three. And I think we all anticipated UVA. I think we all did.
We knew we were getting UVA. We thought we were getting someone else that we didn't get. And thankfully we didn't get somebody that we thought we might get.
We didn't get Miami. Instead, we get Pitt. And then instead of BC, we got Wake. So as far as traveling for your every 3-year game, you don't have to travel that far. But let me press this question to you, Brian. Do you think that we stood on the table so hard that we're not playing BC every year anymore? They jerked Miami away from us.
I think that was the devil's bargain. I think we said we're not playing BC every year, and they said, all right, you're not getting Miami.
Okay, well, hold on. Or did the person at the ACC office go on a bender and screw up Louisville and ours? Because if you look at theirs, that's
GT, Miami, UVA. Yeah, that does sound like slightly more VT aligned than what we got. You get your home state rival with what we got. You get your home state rival. You technically get your closest ACC opponent, and then you get a former Big East opponent.
And then
the closest former Big East opponent you get.
And you get for a time there in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, probably one of the better ACC. One of the better ACC rivalries was the Tech rivalry. Really from the early 2000s. You're okay with Pitt, but Wake should be Miami. Listen, everybody had to lay on the sword some way or the other. Well, maybe with but
Florida State got this one though.
Right. Brian,
we're getting there. We're getting there.
You had a controversial opinion that people went at you hard when you basically said, say it.
If it took losing Miami to get BC off our every year schedule, it was worth it.
So be it. We will We will still play Miami 2 out of every 4 years.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. So and it's not just I want to avoid a tougher opponent, but when you look at the games with BC, getting rid of BC is more important because BC is a zero benefit game for Virginia Tech. It's a big travel game. Whether we're going up there or they're coming to us, it's a big travel, and it's a game that for Virginia Tech, if we win it, we were supposed to, and if we lose it, we're ass. It's not a game
but isn't that the same with Wake?
But we're not traveling 7-8 hours to do that. We're going an hour and a half on a bus.
Okay, but it's still a loss to a lesser opponent. I mean, Brian says he doesn't care. Travel. But I think the other point we were talking about, the other thing about playing in Wake is we're playing in a prime recruiting ground. Yeah. That you can get kids from the 336, from the Charlotte area, and you can get them to come to that home game or that away game, which is going to be, the honest truth is, the first away game at Wake, it's going to be about 40% maroon and orange.
Yep.
Wake already knows that. That's probably – I think Wake stood on the table for us because I think Wake knew that if they could get Virginia Tech, they would have one game every 2 years that they were going to get full capacity. They were going to make a boatload of money off that game because they knew where they're located. A ton of Hokie fans will go to that game because it's going to be reasonably priced tickets, easy to get in, easy to get out.
It's the one game, like when they play NC State is probably the only other consistent game that they play that they can pack the stadium like that.
Yep.
Unless they're playing like a ranked opponent like Clemson or something like that.
Yeah, 100%.
But in terms of throw rankings out the window, throw whatever the current records are out the window, Virginia Tech, when they play Wake, they're going to pack that stadium. And when NC State plays Wake, they're going to pack that stadium.
True. I'm seeing Robbie put in here, he'd rather have the recruiting area in Miami. Well, we're going to be in Florida twice. We're going to be in Florida every year anyway, so between Florida State and Miami. So that is what it is there. All right, so who do you think got screwed in this scenario?
Florida State. I know I talked about it earlier, but they got the shaft, buddy. Florida State out there playing Clemson, Miami, and having to go to the Carrier Dome every other fucking year is bananas.
I mean, is this just like a way they're going to keep Florida State down? Like, you guys are never going to come back. We're gonna give you.
Hey, just as Miami might be back with Cristobal, and you get Clemson, and then you get to go to the Carrier Dome every other year.
Which
holy
the Carrier
shit!
Dome, as everyone knows, ranked teams lose in the Carrier Dome. Clemson lost in the Carrier Dome during one of their playoff run years.
We took a shit in the Carrier Dome in 2016,
and years before that. That place is just terrible to play in. But you know who else I think kind of got a little shafted was Miami, because they pawn Boston College off on Miami every year. Hey, yeah, so, yeah.
Hey, you're that school furthest south. We're going to send you furthest north in the conference.
Oh, my God.
And same rules apply to them. It's a game that they get all that travel in, and if they win, they were supposed to, and if they lose, they shit the bed.
Here's the best part about it. Miami is going to become the red bandana game for BC. Mark it down right now. Miami will become the red bandana game for BC every year.
Yep.
So on a Friday night, when they actually get 80% of the stadium to turn out and the crowd's electric, hey, here comes Miami. And they're a 14-hour flight from South Florida all the way up the coast. So, I think they got screwed just as much. But looking at the rest, it's pretty regionally balanced. They really took care of the Carolina schools. Just, North Carolina literally.
I'm shocked.
Actually, Duke got even better. Duke literally doesn't have to leave the state. North Carolina's furthest trip is up to UVA. So, but overall, you look at it, they kept it kind of regional. They kept the northern teams all together. And as much as we want to get upset, Brian, I don't think anybody else got truly screwed. It's either okay or at best, like it's a push. Oh man. But do you feel like anybody got truly rewarded? Like, hey, here you go.
I mean, maybe Duke is really the only one you can really say, just because they are sticking 100% in state with their.
But it's Duke.
But it's Duke. I mean, I don't know if that's going to really matter. I think BC kind of got fucked a little bit as well. If we're talking about another third, if you want to put in there with Miami, Pitt, and Syracuse, that's regionally okay with them other than Miami, but that's a bad draw for a middle of the road ACC team.
Yeah, you're supposed to beat Syracuse when you go to the Carrier Dome. You're supposed to compete with Pitt and lose to Miami.
Yeah.
In reality, is they're going to probably lose more than a few games in the Carrier Dome the next year.
They're going to lose more than a few in the Carrier Dome, and they're probably going to lose most of those to Miami. And Pitt. So,
so
I mean, you could make the argument that maybe UNC got favorable because they got Duke instead of Wake, and they still get their. They got state, but you knew they were going to get state.
But the whole thing is, how many times have they played state? It's like they played state.
It's so few. It's so few considering how close they are.
How close they are. Now, the bigger issue with Carolina playing state is state probably going to wax them more than a few times, because obviously
I hope so. I hate UNC. I hate UNC so bad. I hate UNC. I hope NC State puts the fucking screws to them.
Well, I hope everybody can put the screws to them. All right, let's look here, Brian, future schedules. We looked at 23, 24, 25, and 26, and there is one schedule that just it lit me and Brian's eyes up. And if you are there, go to the ACC page and go look at 2024. Because, man, I mean, so you get Clemson at home. Awesome. We get Louisville at home, which I was kind of hoping we'd get Louisville instead of Pitt, because at least their fan base, they actually have a living, breathing fan base.
I mean, when you go to their games, it's not sparsely. It's like,
exactly
a third filled in the Heinz Stadium.
Yep. So Georgia Tech, Commonwealth Cup is at home that year. And then, even though these aren't the most exciting road games, Duke, Carolina, Pitt, and Wake Forest. If you are a Virginia Tech fan, if you wanted to purchase all ACC games this year, you would not have to step on a plane to go to those games. Yep. And you're getting the biggest dog at home. I would love to see when that game's going to be. But that's what we're talking about. You get Clemson at home in 2024.
It's also going to be year 3 of Pry, where we should start seeing some corner get turned.
Yep.
So, I mean, with the combination of a somewhat weak and regional away schedule, you get Clemson to where you can showcase what you got. You get UVA at home, and your next toughest competition in the home schedule is Louisville. That's going to be a year where if the Hokies can turn a corner, they've got some potential to really get, +8, +9, potentially 10 wins that year.
Yep. And that's the biggie. But then you look at 2025, we're getting Florida State at home, and we're on the road at Miami.
Yep.
2026
and NC State.
Yeah, and NC State. Miami at home, Clemson on the road. And this is really why it was done. Because if you take a look at some of these schedules and, look at let's look at 2025 again, and let's look at Florida State. They're playing Miami. They play Clemson, we know, and they play us. That's three massive matchups. And we looked at ours already for 25, where it's Florida State and Miami and NC State on the road. What you're doing is for the ACC, when they do that schedule, you could literally schedule a significantly big matchup every single week all throughout the year and put your biggest brands in the best spots, in spotlights. Put your best traditions in spotlights. Put your best stadiums in spotlights. That's why this was done. That's why it was done. Because we saw, what was it, 16 when we played Clemson. That game pulled like a 396. So almost 4 million people watched that game. And for an ACC team, that's huge. The SEC usually pulls about 6.5 on Saturday afternoons. To say you're pulling 4, that's a massive number. And now you're saying you're putting all these programs, and I think that's why we were left out. Because I think they know we draw eyes. And if you leave Miami off our schedule, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are going to be constantly every year. And usually there's going to be 2 a year for one of the most passionate fan bases to play one of the biggest opponents.
Very true.
Go ahead, throw that one up there. One of our Facebook watchers tonight, Jacob Yates, shout out.
Yeah, and we had talked about that when we were going through, because we said the out of conference lined up pretty nicely too, because the two toughest out of conferences were at home as well that year. Yep. So it does line up.
Vandy's
that's what I'm saying.
So that's, you basically say that's going to be a 50-50 split at Nissan. Out in Nashville. So
because we get Rutgers and Marshall at home, and then it's Vandy and Nashville, ODU and in Norfolk.
So significantly favorable that if Pry can turn this around quick, 2024 could be a really big building year. But let's talk about this. What do you think? I've given you my opinion. What do you think this means for Hokie football and the Pry era with this change?
I think it's good because, again, you talking about getting games in the footprint more consistently. I think it's going to be a good recruiting tool. I think it's going to be good to not have to play the same opponents, as many same opponents every year. That's going to help with, in terms of scouting and things like that. It's going to be a little bit harder for folks to get a hold on what Virginia Tech's trying to do. So coaching will definitely separate the cream, and I think we got a good set of guys on that front at this point. So, and I think the way that the schedule is lining up, especially for 2024, is really going to benefit that kind of turning point for Pry as he's getting his guys in, as he's gotten the guys that are already on campus established in the system. They know the ins and outs. They know how to kind of run it like clockwork, right? So that's going to be that turning point year, I feel like. And it comes at a time where our schedule is lining up to not only have some good marquee matchups, but also in terms of travel and strength to be somewhat favorable as well.
It's very true. And something else I was just thinking about here, 2024, because of the weird years of the COVID years, who's still going to be eligible?
Who's that?
Grant Wells.
Hey.
Potentially a 3-year starting quarterback in the year where everything's implemented, and a guy who's shown some promise. Now,
and we should have more guys to throw the ball to by then too.
Hell of a lot more guys. But my hope is Grant Wells isn't the quarterback in 2024, that he just lit it up in 2023 and we won 11 games a year ahead of schedule. All right. So the portal, no one else has left. No one else has entered. There's a lot of kids out there. Again, I feel sorry for them. If you have not, the Hardywood Virginia Tech tailgate event is 11 days away, $20 for a ticket. I'm not sure if they're still on sale or not. I would assume
they were the last time I checked, but I don't know if they've gotten to a full house yet or not. But they were talking about selling. Tickets on day of event. So I don't think wherever they're having it, it's not like a capacity thing.
You don't have a limitation. Me and you go there. We've been there, Brian. There is no limitation. You could have 6,000 people, as big as an area that is.
Yep.
I don't know where they're going to park everybody, but hey, if you work that out when you know,
get there early,
get there really early. Speaking of, I've got to
have a couple beers, hit the food trucks early.
Me and Brian can tell you, $20 is pretty much the price of a beer there. You usually get a 16 ounce. It's usually somewhere between $6 and $8. You leave a tip. The beer itself is worth the $20.
Yep.
All the other stuff is a lot of fun. Also, before we wrap up,
beer, you get snacks, and you get to hear some coaches and potentially some players talk about some football.
And a very good chance to meet them and interact with these guys up front. That's usually a lot of the Hokie Club events. You pay that money, you get the interaction. And as we've seen Brent Pry and some of this other staff, I got a feeling if you walk up at them and start a conversation, they would carry it on with you. So that's awesome. Now, one last piece of information here, Brian, we wanted to do a shout out is just a few days ago, our Twitter account, Boundary Corner, hit 1,500 followers. And for two guys who in the winter of 2020 decided to start doing this for fun because they texted and tweeted and talked about Hokie football constantly, it was just supposed to be for fun. I never thought we'd get as many listens as we've gotten or this big on Twitter. So thank all y'all out there for this.
Yeah. We're still doing this because y'all are still listening. Y'all are still tuning in. Y'all are listening on the apps. Y'all are supporting us, and y'all are following us on social media, interacting with us, and keeping this thing going. So, as long as y'all are out there listening, we're going to keep putting content out there, and we love doing it, and we hope that y'all are getting as much out of it as we are.
Absolutely, and I know for us, you know what's happened really the last couple of years too. You know, got more interconnected into Hokie Nation, made some new friends, had some good laughs, and really looking forward, hopefully this year, getting back in the stadium. I don't have a small child anymore in my house. So, yeah, a little different when you got a small child. But, but we really appreciate you guys, again, listening, following, interacting with us. Again, leave reviews, hit us up on when we're live. If you've got something you want to say, throw it in our chat. Shout out Jacob tonight. First time we've seen that name. If you've got a good point, we'll throw it up there and we'll talk about it. All right, Brian, has anything happened? Has the ACC and the Pac-12 merged where we have to schedule?
Nah, and hopefully the Big 12 doesn't poach those 6 teams they were talking about out the gate from the Pac-12 or the loose partnership is already folding. I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast. I am Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website, boundarycornervt.com, to listen to all of our episodes. And while you're there, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, subscribe on our YouTube account, or your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcast. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long play us in, play us out. And for Jason, for you guys down in the Roanoke Valley area, on July 20th from 5 to 7, he's going to be playing at Crystal Springs Grocery Pop-Up Market in Roanoke. And on August 6th from 6 to 9, he is going to be in outer space in Floyd County. He's also going to be playing the Roanoke Volleyball Club's after party this weekend. So if anybody's involved with that, our buddy will be out there providing the entertainment. Always catch him on Spotify and Apple Music.
And he might be having some more new music coming out soon. So,
oh, yes. I think he had a session the other day. So we might have some more releases from Jason very soon. Yeah, definitely check the new one out. Old Man Yelling at the TV. And Brian, we always thank our fans for listening. And as always, let's go.
Hokies.